So here's what's going on. Michigan's ex-governor Rick Snyder knew about Flint's toxic water and lied about it. This is an investigation published by Vice, uncovered by Jordan Cheriton and Jen Dyes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name right, over at Status Coup. During the inauguration of his successor, outgoing Michigan Governor Rick Snyder needed a favor. At the January 2019 event, Snyder approached Karen Weaver, who was then the mayor of Flint, a city of nearly 100,000 people that was still reeling from financial decay and a toxic water crisis. He asked whether she could meet with Congressman Elijah Cummings. You have a lot of influence with him. Throughout the water crisis, Cummings led the charge as Congress demanded Snyder and his administration provide more information about what he knew about the poisonous water that ravaged the impoverished majority-minority Rust Belt city after it switched water sources to the corrosive Flint River in 2014. Keep in mind what happened. They privatized their water source, and then all this happened. They privatized their water source to save a little bit of money, and then they had a water crisis. More specifically, Cummings pushed for more information on when Snyder first learned of the lethal bacteria outbreak in Flint. Snyder testified to Congress that he first became aware in January 2016 and held a press conference the next day. Flint residents didn't believe the governor. Their doubt intensified after Harvey Hollins, the director of the state's Urban and Metropolitan Initiatives Office, contradicted the governor, testifying to Congress that he informed Snyder about the outbreak in December of 2015. Back at the inauguration, Weaver said, Snyder asked her to get Cummings to back off from investigating him, emphasizing he wanted to move on with his life as a private citizen. What Snyder didn't know was that Cummings and Weaver had already spoken after Democrats won control of the House in the 2018 midterm election. Weaver said Cummings disclosed his plan to compel Snyder back to Congress for additional questioning. He wanted her there, but Cummings' death in October 2019 prevented that from occurring. After a Vice investigation spanning a year and a half across the state of Michigan, overwhelming evidence indicates Snyder had good reason to worry. So check this out. This is my first time reading this, by the way. Hundreds of confidential pages of documents obtained by Vice, along with emails and interviews, reveal a coordinated 5-year cover-up overseen by Snyder and his top officials to prevent news of Flint's deadly water from going public. All told, the waterborne bacterial disease may have killed at least 115 people in 2014 and 2015, and potentially more whose pneumonia wasn't officially considered the disease, the Legionnaire's disease, that's what you get from the contaminated water. In addition to the outbreak, Flint's water supply was contaminated with lead and other heavy metals. Not the good music kind, but heavy metals that shouldn't be in your water. Harmful bacteria, carcinogens, and other toxic components. This wreaked havoc on Flint residents, leaving them with a laundry list of illnesses. Wow. So he knew about this in 2014. So here's what's going on. Snyder was warned about the dangers of using the Flint River as a water source a year before the water switch even occurred. So a year before he even switched it over, he was warned that this ain't going to go well. Snyder had knowledge of the outbreak in Flint as early as October 2014. So he didn't know about it in 2016. He knew about it in 2014. This was 6 months after the water switch and 16 months earlier than he claimed to have learned of the deadly outbreak in testimony under oath before Congress. So he was warned about it a year before they even did it. So he was warned about it, it looks like as far back as 2013. He knew about it in 2014. He's claiming to have no knowledge of this until 2016. Communication among Snyder, his top officials in the state health department, spiked in October 2014. Around the same time, state and environmental and health officials traded emails and calls about the Legionella outbreak in Flint. So he knew about it for years before he claimed he knew about it. And he was warned about it before the switch even happened. So he could have just potentially not done the switch. He could have just been like, okay, this is dangerous. I'm not going to switch. I'm not going to privatize the water supply to save money because it could lead to toxic water. He was warned about it, but it went through anyway. According to sources familiar with the criminal investigation, as well as Flint residents Vice spoke to during these 16 months, Snyder's top advisor, Bard, attempted to pay off sick Flint residents to keep quiet and silence a whistleblower sounding alarms over the city using the Flint River while there was still time to save lives. And Snyder himself punished Weaver, Flint's mayor, she said, after she repeatedly refused his administration's request for her to declare the water safe in Flint to residents. Wow. So in short, I mean, the biggest takeaway here, all of this could have been prevented. All of it. All of what happened in Flint could have been prevented, and they knew about it, and they didn't do anything. They let it go through. Why? Because it padded their pockets. Do you think MSNBC is going to cover this? Think CNN's going to cover this? Do you think Fox News is going to? I guess we'll see. It dropped today. And you know what? I'm glad Vice published it. Got to tip the hat to them for publishing this. But we'll see if any of the corporate cable outlets even mention this. Because they've been silent on Flint since, well, for years now. Flint still doesn't have clean water. Michelle Wolf said it when she did the correspondence dinner. It's how she closed. That was her last, you know what? You guys really suck to the media. She reminded them, by the way, Flint doesn't have clean water. Well, you guys are putting on your tinfoil hats about Russiagate 24 hours a frickin' day. And then when you're talking about Trump's tweets, when you're lying about how much Medicare for all costs, when you're having just this knee-jerk, hyper-partisan horse and pony show and passing it off as news, when you're lying about all of our foreign interventions, Flint still doesn't have clean water. You're not talking about it. In fact, the only time you report on DAPL is to try to make it out like the protesters were in the wrong. And you're all, and you know, you're trying to, and when you try to make claims that Russia infiltrated DAPL. So, wow. So there you have it. They knew. They knew years before they claimed they knew.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your